Hey, it's Nancy. Before we begin today, I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Crime Beat early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. On a cold winter day in early 2002, Bob Novak waited outside a Southeast Calgary bank for his 24-year-old daughter. Barbara Eyapaise was a bright spot in his life and always had been.
But Barbara was such a joy. She was right from a baby, she was unique.
But as the clock ticked later and later, a wave of dread washed over him. Barbara was dependable, but she didn't show up.
I also knew of Barbara's way. She was always, if she was said she'll be somewhere, she'd keep her word.
Confused and a bit concerned, Bob went home. He had no idea that moment would be the starting point of an excruciating journey for him and his family.
It was the hardest thing in my life.
I'm Nancy Hixt, a senior crime reporter for Global News. Today, on Crime Beat, I share details of Barbara's mysterious disappearance and the desperate search that ensued. This is Last Call. In 2002, Barbara Eyapaise was feeling on top of the world. She had just moved into a new place with her boyfriend her family adored. She was just accepted to a nursing program and was in the process of getting a loan approved to help finance it. As all her major personal pieces were falling into place, she also had a great job and was enjoying life.
She was working at some kind of a bar. It was downtown, was all the lawyers and stuff. They all liked her there. Yeah, she was doing good, yeah.
To get to this point, Barbara had overcome a lot of adversity. Her parents, Bob Novak and Nellie Eyapaise, were teenage sweethearts and remained together despite battling addiction issues into adulthood. Barbara was so proud when her father went to treatment. He's remained sober since 1991. But it wasn't a perfect romance for Bob and Nellie. After they had children, they split up for several years. The couple was apart when Barbara, who was only 14 years old, and her two brothers witnessed a horrific event. Nellie's then partner was killed outside their house. Her three kids witnessed the attack and thought he was being punched, but in reality, he was getting stabbed. Their home became a crime scene and a homicide investigation began. In the end, two men were convicted of second-degree murder in the case. Barbara's parents reunited several years after that. That violent murder scene haunted Barbara, but she didn't let it derail her future. Her father told me she was the first in their family to get a high school diploma. Bob Novak was so proud of Barbara and appreciated that no matter how busy she got, she always made time for family. That's why it was such a shock when Barbara missed an appointment with her father at a Calgary bank on Friday, January 18th, 2002. Bob and Nellie spent the entire weekend trying to get a hold of her to no avail. She hadn't been home. Her boyfriend hadn't seen her. Bob said that as time went by with no word from her, they worried that something bad had happened.
Well, Nellie was getting all panicky for a day or two. I said, just relax. If she's not back for her job Monday, then we'll do something. Well, she didn't come back for her job. So then I said, okay, we'll go do something. So I went down and talked to the detectives.
Barbara's brother, Kevin Eyapaise, remembers feeling trepidatious.
It was actually my mom that phoned me, and she was just hysterical, kind of just saying that she was gone, and that wasn't like her, right? Like, she always was in touch with my mom, always in touch with my dad, my aunt.
Nellie felt helpless. She had called everyone she could think who might have seen Barbara, and now she could only wait to hear back from police. She lit a candle as a sign of hope that her daughter would be found safe.
Nobody's seen her or heard from her or anything. No, that's not like Barbara. She would have got in contact with one of us.
But as each new day passed, Barbara's family became more fearful.
I'm worried that she's not all right, like she could be hurt or even dead, because I fear the worst.
Kevin said it was a stressful time for the whole family.
Just the not knowing, like no one knew anything. Not knowing is the worst, right? Because it could be anything.
As investigators retraced Barbara's steps, they realized none of her family or friends had seen or heard from her in at least 4 days after she had gone out for drinks on January 17th, 2002, the night before she was supposed to meet her dad for the bank appointment.
It may very well be like some missing people want to be missing. They've left a situation, or perhaps it's an abusive relationship or whatnot. We also have to retrace the steps and of missing people and try to find out, okay, where were they? Who saw them last? Is there video? We're just doing all of that really basic groundwork.
Deputy Chief Cliff O'Brien has been with the Calgary Police Service since 1996. He's agreed to help me share this story.
So when we interviewed Barbara's mom, we knew that they had been out together. They had been drinking at a Legion downtown, that they had left that place together and they had gone to another bar, the Cecil Hotel downtown. And that later on, after a few drinks, that Barbara's mom left and Barbara was still there with some other individuals. When the mom couldn't get a hold of Barbara, she started doing her own investigation. She found out that Barbara had gone to Renegade's bar from the Cecil via cab, and that it was actually a group of them that had left the Cecil and went to Renegade's.
Police mapped out each of the bars Barbara went to that night, starting with the Cecil Hotel, which was the last place Nellie had seen her daughter. The Cecil was built in 1912, and for more than a century, it was an iconic landmark in Calgary as one of the few pre-war hotels in the city. It's gone now, but back then, the pale blue walls were easy to spot for commuters as they went in and out of downtown. But over the years, it wasn't well kept. It had been ravaged by multiple fires that slowly turned it into a rundown eyesore and a hotbed of crime. I covered countless stories at the Cecil, and as I put this episode together, I went through them. Each video depicted issues caused by illicit sex, drugs, and violence. But when this story took place in 2002, it was just on the verge of that downward spiral, and back then, it was still a fairly popular drinking spot. Nellie told police that she said goodbye to her daughter at about 9 p.m. on January 17th. Then left the Cecil and went home. Barbara's friends told Nellie that not long after that, Barbara and two of her friends took a 10-minute cab ride away from downtown to a bar in southeast Calgary called Renegade's. It's located on Memorial Drive, which is a main east-west artery in the city. Renegade's has changed hands many times over the years, and it's no longer open, but back then, it was a well-known trouble spot for police.
It was a busy bar. It was lots of police activity there because of the people that were there and the levels of service, that sort of thing. It was just a well-known bar that had lots of issues.
Former Calgary police detective Len Howland worked in the area for many years and was familiar with ongoing problems at the bar.
Fights, drugs, alcohol, that sort of thing, impaired driving and all kinds of stuff. But it was a magnet for people that wanted that type of an atmosphere.
As Calgary police looked into Barbara's disappearance, officers went to Renegade's. The bar manager remembered seeing her on January 17th. He said the night was still fresh in his mind and he was happy to provide details. He told officers that Barbara and her friends appeared to be having a good time, drinking and dancing the night away. But he said, as he was wrapping up last call, Barbara and her friends got into a dispute. Here again is Deputy Chief Cliff O'Brien.
The inquiries at Renegades indicated that Barbara had gone into some type of altercation, argument with two males. It seemed to be over her accusing them of stealing $25 and that she needed that money because that was her cab money to get back home. And that seemed to be the gist of this particular dispute that was going on. I can only think that it was probably a substantial argument if people are noticing it. And if that's your cab fare to get home and somebody's taken it and now you're stranded somewhere, like I can see where somebody obviously would be upset.
The manager said two different men offered to drive Barbara home, but she made it clear she didn't feel safe going with either of them. The manager said Barbara was still there at closing when he went home. But police needed more information, and as they worked to build out a longer timeline of Barbara's last movements, they asked the manager to make further inquiries.
It takes multiple times or multiple interviews to go back, sometimes because people forget or they maybe remember things after the fact or they find out things after the fact. And in this case, when the investigators went back to talk to the manager had made some inquiries with his own staff and was able to tell us that there was actually an off-duty door person or doorman that was there that had given Barbara a ride from Renegades.
As police followed the trail of witnesses, Detective Howland was assigned to interview the Renegades bouncer.
His statement was that she was incredibly intoxicated. She had no money. He was in there on his day off, so he technically wasn't working. He was in there as a patron, but he volunteered to drive her home. And he said that he drove her from the bar to her home, and he mentioned that he thought someone was following him from the bar, but he dropped her off at her home where she told him it was. He saw a couple of guys get out of a car.
The doorman told police it was the same two men Barbara had been seen arguing with at the bar. He said he didn't want to get involved in an altercation, so he left. Detective Howland said this witness was extremely cooperative.
And he drove me on the route that he took to take her home. When he dropped her off, it was at the intersection, which was about 3 houses from her home, not in front of the house. He's even stronger in his description of having been followed, a couple of guys, and he watched them get out of their vehicle. They started arguing with Barbara, and he drove away.
Deputy Chief O'Brien said the bouncer's statement brought investigators full circle to what Nellie had suggested, that the two men Barbara took a cab with to Renegades and was seen arguing with might have information about her disappearance.
Well, certainly red flags for us. Barbara's in a bar at closing time, gets into an argument with two individuals, and those two individuals somehow show up at her house. That's a concern. I can't imagine what it's like for the family when you've got your 24-year-old that's gone missing and you had just been out with her just before she went missing. So the family, as they're trying to help and they're trying to get information, they also know about this argument that took place in the bar. They're talking to family and friends. They're getting some of this information, and they are very convinced that these two individuals must be responsible because they're the only ones that anybody saw Barbara have a conflict with. So now what we need to do is track down who are these two individuals and, are they involved in Barbara's disappearance?
In the meantime, there was another incident. On January 31st, nearly 2 weeks after Barbara Eyapaise was last seen, the off-duty bouncer from Renegades who gave her a ride home contacted police. Fred Abma said he was on his way to the bar when a car pulled up behind his truck and shot at him. Police responded, and he ended up going to the nearby station to provide further details. He told officers the people responsible were the same two men he had seen outside of Barbara's house when he dropped her off.
You have these two individuals from the bar that Barbara had been arguing with. They now show up at her house, parked outside, and you now have the bouncer claiming that his window was shot out by them. So like this is definitely an escalation in this particular investigation.
Fred Abma sat across from two officers and provided a recorded statement.
Was a royal blue Honda, 4-door with a sunroof. That was the same car that was at her house when I pulled up. And I seen him hold his hand out, and I seen the gun in his hand.
What type of gun?
Black.
Handgun, long gun?
Handgun.
Handgun?
Yeah, the barrel wasn't that long, so it'd be short barrel, I guess.
So was it a pistol, revolver?
Pistol.
Pistol, for sure?
One with a clip.
You heard the shot?
I heard my window go.
So you heard the window go?
Yeah.
But did you actually hear the
shot? Yes, I
the
did.
shot? Okay.
So he found me, he took his shot, he missed, I got away.
So you're assuming the guy that you took a shot at was the same guy?
I am just assuming that.
You're assuming that? Okay.
This guy has a motive. I can identify him.
Right.
I'm pretty interested in catching this person, whoever, whatever he did with Barbara.
Sure.
I feel kind of responsible because I had the choice. I could have got out of my truck and grabbed those two guys and smacked them around and they would have left. But instead I just drove off and she went with them, I guess.
The bouncer then volunteered to have police examine his truck to see if they could find any forensic evidence related to the shooting. In the meantime, Deputy Chief O'Brien said investigators were looking for the two potential suspects.
There was a substantial amount of investigative work that went into this, and in particular into trying to identify these two individuals, but we did. And we were able to go and interview both of those males that Barbara had that argument with. We interviewed them separately. Their stories were very similar, and their story was that they did leave the bar, but they left the bar in a cab, and they gave us a cab number. When we tracked down their alibi, it seems to check out. We got a taxi receipt that indicated that, in fact, they did take a taxi. We talked to the roommate that said, yes, this is when they showed up. And so we've got two conflicting stories going on here. We're not really sure what's going on, but it appears that these males are not involved in her disappearance.
With confirmed alibis for both men, police were back at square one. Except now investigators had a lot more questions about what the bouncer had told them.
It's just a challenge for investigators that we have two different stories. We have two witnesses and the stories are not checking out. There's no way that, according to the cab driver and the receipt that was issued, as well as the roommate, that these two males would have been at Barbara's house at the time that the bouncer said that they were there.
And then there was another startling development.
So we had our forensic crime scenes unit look at that window, and it was broken for sure, but they were able to determine that it was not shot out, that it looked like it was some type of instrument that had broken it. It definitely was not broken by a bullet. It's pretty clear that somebody's lying to us. And so we need to figure out who that is. And I think from our perspective, as the investigators are working through this file, we need to find out a little bit more about the bouncer.
Detective Howland was the first person to interview Fred Abma, and so it made sense that he would be the one to go back and push him on some of these issues.
There's so many conversations with him. He's starting to get suspicious that maybe we think he's a suspect. And he says that we need to talk to his friend where he went after he had dropped the victim off.
At that point, Abma was certainly raising suspicions because his stories weren't adding up.
I went and talked to that friend and got a written alibi, a statement stating that Mr. Abma had been to that house from like 2:30 till 4:30 in the morning on the 18th. So we have an alibi.
Deputy Chief O'Brien said it seemed like once again the investigation had stalled. Meanwhile, Barbara was still missing.
Probably of most significant as far as concern goes is that we could not find any footprints of life for Barbara after she left Renegades. So when we looked at banking information, there was no banking information. She had a job. She didn't show up to her job. We already know that she had not contacted her family. We know that she had missed that appointment with her dad. All of these pieces coming together causes us great concern that something more has happened to Barbara.
That's when a tip to the RCMP that seemed to be completely unrelated shed new light on the investigation.
You saw somebody's picture in a newspaper?
Yeah.
And where was that? Where did you see this?
It was in the Sun.
The Calvary Sun?
Yeah.
And it was the picture that drew your attention?
Yeah.
It is absolutely suspicious.
And it was like, bingo, the light came on for everybody all at once. Like, this is the guy.
That's next time on Crime Beat. Crime Beat is written and produced by me, Nancy Hixt, with senior producer Dila Velasquez. Audio editing and sound design is by Rob Johnston. Special thanks to photographer-editor Danny Lantella for his work on this episode. And thanks to Chris Bassett, the VP of Network Content, Production, and Distribution, and Editorial Standards for Global News. I would love to have you tell a friend about this podcast. There are 7 seasons of stories you can listen to and share. And please consider rating and reviewing Crime Beat on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. You can find me on Facebook at Nancy Hixt Crime Beat and on Instagram at nancy.hixt. That's Hixt. Thanks again for listening. Please join me next time.